Zorblax adjusted their human disguise, staring into the cracked reflection of a car window. Earthling bodies were strange, bipedal, squishy, and overwhelmingly symmetrical. As a proud Glorvian from Sector X-21, Zorblax wasn't used to so many curves. Yet, here they were, blending in on this perplexing planet to accomplish the most daunting mission of their career: decode human mating rituals. Their first clue came from an artifact they salvaged after crash landing, a smartphone. Though damaged, it still buzzed with human wisdom, particularly in the form of memes and dating advice videos. Zorblax replayed one video for the 7th time. Asterisk. Rule 1, play hard to get. Rule 2, always leave her wanting more. Rule 3, make her jealous. It's human nature. Asterisk. This, Zorblax concluded, was the blueprint for Earth's courtship strategies. They didn't have much to go on back home. Glorvian reproduction involved spitting into a nutrient pod and waiting for a squiggly offspring to emerge. This chase dynamic seemed unnecessarily complicated, but humans thrived on chaos. Their first target, subject, emerged like a vision through the haze of a city street. Jessica, as her coffee apron declared, was stationed outside her workplace, absently scrolling on her phone. She had the symmetrical features humans seemed to value, along with an aura of exasperation that Zorblax found oddly magnetic. Step 1. Zorblax muttered, rehearsing their protocol. Ignore her. Jessica glanced up as Zorblax stopped a few feet away. They froze, staring into the distance like a malfunctioning mannequin. After several long seconds, Jessica raised an eyebrow. Can I help you? No, Zorblax replied curtly, keeping their gaze fixed on a lamppost. Humans, the memes had explained, admired mystery. Okay, weirdo. Jessica turned back to her phone, clearly unfazed. Zorblax took this as a promising sign. Humans were resistant creatures, but persistence would surely prevail. Back at their hideout, a dilapidated storage unit, they prepared for Phase 2, acting mysterious. Zorblax studied Earth's romantic vocabulary, focusing on words that sounded profound but conveyed little. The next day, they returned to Jessica's coffee stand and waited until she looked at them. Hey, it's you again, Jessica said, her voice laced with sarcasm. Still staring into the void? Zorblax tilted their head, squinting dramatically. The void is but a reflection of the chaos within. Jessica blinked. What? Do you not feel it? The gravitational pull of inevitability, pulling us together like two intergalactic comets on a collision course. Jessica burst out laughing, nearly dropping the cup she was holding. Are you high? Or just one of those wannabe poets? Zorblax frowned. The meme about cryptic language had seemed reliable. Still, Jessica's laughter was contagious, and Zorblax found themselves smiling despite their failure. Neither, they said, trying to recover. I am simply a traveler seeking understanding. Jessica leaned on the counter, amused. Well, traveler, maybe next time bring money. This isn't a free observation deck. Zorblax noted the hint of humor in her tone and decided to proceed to step 3, jealousy. If Jessica thought they had other options, surely she chased them. The following day, Zorblax returned, this time accompanied by a local dog they had befriended. Humans seemed to value companionship, and they were confident this would spark jealousy. Whose dog is that? Jessica asked, handing a latte to a customer. Mine, Zorblax lied, scratching behind the dog's ears. The creature wagged its tail enthusiastically, unaware of its role in the experiment. Jessica smirked. You don't strike me as the responsible pet owner type. Zorblax hesitated. It teaches me much about loyalty and unconditional affection. Jessica burst out laughing again. All right, Shakespeare. What's the real story? Before Zorblax could respond, the dog lunged forward, knocking over a display of pastries. Chaos erupted as muffins scattered across the sidewalk, and Zorblax scrambled to contain the situation. Okay, this is officially the highlight of my week, Jessica said between giggles. You're ridiculous. As they gathered the last of the pastries, Zorblax couldn't help but feel that, despite the setbacks, progress was being made. Jessica's laughter, though at their expense, was undeniably captivating. Perhaps human courtship wasn't about perfection, it was about surviving the chaos together. Zorblax reviewed the protocols meticulously, determined to refine their methods. The memes had been clear, each step was critical. Ignore her, act mysterious, and make her jealous. Surely humans wouldn't spread such advice unless it worked. They adjusted their disguise again, donning sunglasses indoors and attempting what humans call the smoldering expression. It felt unnatural, but Earth's rituals demanded sacrifice. When Zorblax approached the coffee shop, they didn't greet Jessica. Instead, they walked past her, stopping to lean against a lamppost. They pulled out the smartphone and pretended to scroll, glancing her way occasionally while maintaining an aloof posture. Jessica noticed immediately. "Wow, look who's too cool to say hi now." Zorblax didn't respond, staying focused on their fake scrolling. According to the internet, silence was an enigmatic power move. Jessica tilted her head. "All right, mystery man. Suit yourself." She went back to work, but Zorblax caught her stealing occasional glances. Surely, this meant progress. Step 2 demanded they up the ante, so later that day, Zorblax returned with what they believed would solidify their mysterious aura, a long, flowing trench coat they'd found in a thrift store. They strode up to the coffee stand and stood in silence, waiting for Jessica to notice. "Nice coat," Jessica remarked dryly. "You starting a detective agency or just auditioning for a vampire flick?" "It is a shroud," Zorblax replied cryptically, their voice low and gravelly. Jessica squinted. "A shroud for what?" "For the enigma that is my existence." Jessica snorted, trying to suppress a laugh. "All right, Dracula. What can I get you?" Zorblax realized they hadn't prepared for this part of the interaction. "A potion. Your strongest brew." "You mean coffee?" "Yes," Zorblax said, trying to recover. "The elixir of your kind's vitality." Jessica handed over a cup, shaking her head. "You're weird, but I'll give you points for commitment." Emboldened by what they assumed was a compliment, Zorblax moved on to step 3. The jealousy tactic required more finesse, so they sought out other Earthlings to practice on. At a nearby park, they approached a group of women sitting on a bench. "Greetings," Zorblax began, attempting what they'd learned was a charming smile. "I seek companionship for observational purposes." The women exchanged confused looks, but one of them, apparently amused, decided to engage. "Observational purposes? You some kind of researcher?" "Yes," Zorblax replied earnestly. "I studied the complexities of your mating rituals." The women burst out laughing, thinking it was a joke. "Well, good luck with that, Romeo." Zorblax returned to the coffee shop later, strategically walking by with one of the women they'd met earlier. They had persuaded her to accompany them by explaining it was for cultural immersion. Jessica noticed them immediately. "Oh, wow," Jessica said, her tone teasing. "Didn't think you had it in you." Zorblax paused, feigning indifference. "I am multifaceted." The woman beside them giggled, clearly entertained by the odd situation. Jessica, however, seemed less amused. "Well, enjoy your immersion." Feeling victorious, Zorblax believed the protocol was working. Jessica's expression suggested she was intrigued, possibly even jealous. But their moment of triumph was short-lived. As Zorblax turned to leave, the woman tugged on their sleeve. "Hey, this was fun, but I gotta run. Good luck with your research or whatever." She gave them a pat on the shoulder and walked off, leaving Zorblax standing awkwardly in front of Jessica. Jessica raised an eyebrow. "That was fast. Didn't even make it to the first date?" "This was a preliminary interaction," Zorblax replied, scrambling for an explanation. "Humans require incremental bonding." Jessica smirked. "Sure. Incremental bonding." Despite the setbacks, Zorblax couldn't help but notice that Jessica seemed more engaged than ever. Perhaps humans appreciated effort, even if it was unconventional. They left the coffee stand with renewed determination, ready to refine the protocol further. Zorblax was certain their protocol was close to succeeding. Jessica had shown signs of intrigue, even if her reactions often came with sarcastic undertones. Still, Earth's courtship rituals were unpredictable, and Zorblax resolved to double down on their efforts. They decided it was time to introduce an advanced maneuver, the art of calculated absence, or as the internet called it, ghosting. The next day, Zorblax avoided the coffee shop entirely, opting instead to pace around their hideout. They had reviewed dozens of videos claiming that making someone miss you was the key to igniting desire. Surely Jessica, deprived of their enigmatic presence, would begin to wonder about them. By day 2 of absence, Zorblax found themselves pacing more frantically. Perhaps Earthlings require additional time for emotional realization, they muttered, trying to convince themselves. By day 3, their patience snapped. They returned to the coffee shop, unable to resist checking in on the progress of their absence-induced allure. Jessica spotted them immediately. Well, look who decided to show up. Couldn't stay away, huh? Zorblax hesitated. I was merely recalibrating my strategies. Jessica laughed. You're something else. Let me guess, you were off brooding in your trench coat, contemplating the mysteries of life? Precisely, Zorblax replied, trying to regain their composure. A period of introspection is vital for any meaningful connection. Jessica handed a coffee to a customer, then turned back to Zorblax, clearly amused. So, what's next on the agenda? More cryptic one-liners? Or are you finally going to tell me what your deal is? This was not how the protocol was supposed to unfold. Zorblax fumbled for a response, but before they could recover, Jessica leaned forward, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Honestly? I kind of missed the weird energy. The place was too quiet without you. Zorblax's circuits nearly shorted. Was this success? The protocol had worked after all. But before they could bask in their victory, Jessica's smirk widened. Don't let it go to your head, though. I still think you're nuts. Step 3 had officially backfired, and Zorblax decided a change in tactics was necessary. They reviewed their notes, and concluded that Earthlings valued spontaneity. Jessica often seemed amused by their eccentricities, so Zorblax decided to lean into their unique strengths. Later that day, Zorblax returned with what they believed to be a grand romantic gesture, a bouquet of raw vegetables. They had seen humans give flowers in movies, but their research had revealed vegetables to be more nutritious and, therefore, more logical. Jessica stared at the offering, clearly trying to process the moment. Is that kale? Yes, Zorblax replied confidently. It symbolizes vitality and sustainability. Jessica burst out laughing, nearly doubling over. Oh my God, you're killing me! This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Zorblax frowned. You do not appreciate the gesture? No, I do, Jessica said between laughs. It's just, no one's ever given me a vegetable bouquet before. You're really one of a kind, you know that? Despite the laughter, Jessica's expression softened as she took the bouquet. Zorblax couldn't help but feel a small sense of triumph. Perhaps Earthlings valued humor as much as they did logic. Their victory was short-lived when another customer interrupted the moment. Zorblax stepped aside, feeling the sting of their limited success. Still, Jessica had accepted the bouquet, and that counted as progress. That evening, Zorblax reflected on their interactions. They had come to realize that while the protocol provided structure, its rigid rules often clashed with Earth's chaotic energy. Humans, it seemed, thrived on unpredictability, and Jessica was no exception. For the first time, Zorblax considered abandoning the protocol entirely. But could they truly succeed in this mission without it? They stared at their smartphone, scrolling through more advice columns and videos, hoping for clarity. Instead, they found themselves laughing at the absurdity of it all. Perhaps Earth's most important lesson was that connection couldn't be engineered, it had to be felt. Still, Zorblax wasn't ready to give up just yet. They decided their next move would be bold, spontaneous, and entirely unpredictable. Zorblax prepared for what they believed would be the final step in their mission. If subtlety had failed, then sheer audacity would surely prevail. Humans seemed to value big gestures that broke the monotony of their lives, and Jessica, with her quick wit and exasperated tolerance, deserved nothing less than something spectacular. The plan began with what Zorblax had learned to call a confession. Earthlings often expressed their feelings in dramatic, emotionally charged moments, usually accompanied by swelling music in their movies. Zorblax had no orchestra, but they had confidence, or at least, the alien equivalent of it. They arrived at the coffee shop just as Jessica was finishing her shift. She spotted them immediately and raised an eyebrow. "You're back. Didn't think I'd see you after the Kale incident. I have come to deliver a message," Zorblax announced, their voice louder than necessary. Several nearby customers turned to watch, and Jessica sighed, clearly bracing herself for another performance. "Go on," she said, crossing her arms. Zorblax took a deep breath. "Jessica, I have studied your kind's mating rituals extensively. I have employed strategies of mystery, absence, and jealousy. Yet, despite my exhaustive efforts, one thing has become abundantly clear." Jessica leaned against the counter, curious despite herself. "And what's that?" "That your attraction protocols are completely illogical." Jessica blinked, then laughed. "Well, thanks for the insight. I'll pass that along to humanity, I guess?" Zorblax continued undeterred. "However, despite this illogic, I find myself inexplicably drawn to you. Your sharp humor, your willingness to tolerate my eccentricities, and your unparalleled ability to laugh at my failures have disrupted my neural circuits." Jessica's laughter faltered, replaced by a look of genuine surprise. "Wait, are you serious?" "As serious as a Glorvian can be," Zorblax replied, placing a hand over what they assumed was the human equivalent of a heart. The silence that followed was excruciating. Zorblax shifted awkwardly, unsure if they had miscalculated once again. But then, Jessica smiled, a real, unguarded smile that made Zorblax's borrowed human body feel strangely warm. "Well, that's probably the weirdest confession I've ever heard," she said, shaking her head. "But you know what? I kind of like weird." Before Zorblax could process her words, Jessica walked around the counter, standing just a few feet away. "You're not like anyone I've ever met. And yeah, you drive me crazy, but maybe that's not such a bad thing." Zorblax's eyes widened. "Does this mean the protocol has succeeded?" Jessica laughed again, this time with a warmth that Zorblax hadn't heard before. "Forget the protocol. Just be yourself, okay? That's what's working." The simplicity of her statement hit Zorblax harder than any meme or advice column ever had. They realized that all their attempts to manipulate the situation had only complicated something that was meant to be simple. Connection wasn't about strategies or rules, it was about honesty, even when it didn't make sense. "Very well," Zorblax said, standing a little straighter. "I shall be myself." "Good," Jessica replied, giving them a playful nudge. "Now let's start over. You drink coffee, right? Or do you just collect vegetable bouquets?" The two of them laughed, and for the first time, Zorblax felt like they truly understood what it meant to connect with another being. The mission might have started as a quest for knowledge, but it had turned into something far more rewarding, and infinitely more human.